Hi everyone, Liam Bailey here from O'Brien Palmer. Today I wanted to have a bit of an update on the small business restructuring process. In response to the inquiries from our viewers, a lot of people have been asking what's happening in the small business restructuring space and have there been any changes? And the answer is, yeah, there really have been. Now before we go on, take a look at the links just down here below to see our previous presentations about what are small business restructures and how is the restructuring industry responding to the support of small business restructures by the Australian Taxation Office. As a really quick overview, for those of you who haven't seen those videos, a small business restructure is a simplified process by which a company that is affected by cash flow issues or solvency issues can propose a restructuring arrangement to its creditors, and if those creditors are generally supportive, able to pay those creditors a cents on the dollar dividend in return for full and final settlement of their debts. It's a simplified way to a company to return its balance sheet back to the black and reduce its unsecured liabilities. Largely, the small business restructure has been successful in the restructuring space because of the level of support for the process from the Australian Taxation Office. The Australian Taxation Office is the single creditor, or by far the largest creditor in over 91% of small business restructures, and have been until recently supporting over 90% of small business restructure proposals put to it. But has this changed? The answer is yes. The ATO is responding to the way the industry has evolved, and that is that on public interest tests, it is no longer accepting the full gamut of small business restructures that are being put to them. So, what are some of the issues that the ATO is looking at besides a direct financial return when they're making a decision about whether or not to support small business restructures? The first is coming down to the level of the history of compliance. If you're a company with a poor history of compliance, if you are a company that is bringing your tax affairs into compliance around the same time as a small business restructure is being offered, the ATO is somewhat skeptical about the future of the company. So we have to suggest that if you have a poor history of compliance, you need to bring your tax affairs and your lodgements up to date before the commencement of the small business restructure. Recently, the ATO has turned down a number of small business restructures where the tax lodgements were being lodged during the small business restructuring period. Whilst it might be okay to do the last interim returns after the commencement of the small business restructure, if you're bringing those lodgements for a number of periods up to date after the commencement of the small business restructure, it's really going to reduce the prospects of the ATO approving it. Another area that the ATO has started turning down SBR proposals is in circumstances where it becomes evident that the ATO is the only creditor being asked to compromise on the monies owed to them, leaving all the other creditors having been paid in full in the lead up to the small business restructuring appointment. The SBR process is designed so that all creditors can equally provide debt relief to the company. If the company has structured its affairs to pay all of its suppliers or all of its other liabilities and leaving the ATO unpaid for a period of time, on the basis that it expects that the ATO will provide debt relief by supporting the small business restructure, the ATO considers that this is an unfair or manipulation of the small business restructuring process and is voting small business restructures down. So, what can we take from this? The process is designed for genuine cash flow shortages, not people who have gone out to structure their affairs purely to avoid paying tax. Another area that the ATO is starting to look at critically is the issue of having director loan accounts. If you're a business where you have loan accounts owed back to your company, and if those loan accounts were repaid, there may be little to no residual ATO debt. ATO does not consider that the small business restructure process will validate these business practices. That is to say, if the company could pay its debts but for the money that you have taken out of the company, then the ATO expects that you put the money back and pay the company's debts. The last area to bring to directors' attention is this. The ATO expects that when you put forward a small business restructuring proposal, it isn't a proposal that necessarily ties into the perception of what the ATO might accept, that being the 20 to 25 cent mark that's so broadly spoken about in the industry. The expectation is that the proposal put forward is the best proposal to settle the company's debts that the company or the director can afford. In this regard, if you are a director who has individual personal capacity to fund better workouts, or if there are assets that can be realised in the company to fund a better outcome, or ultimately, if liquidation of the company will result in a better return to creditors than the dividend being proposed under the small business restructuring process, the ATO is less inclined to accept these sorts of workouts. So the takeaway here is this: the small business restructuring process is designed to form genuine debt relief to companies that are financially stressed, and not as a result of director mismanagement, and not as a result of deliberate manipulation of the company's circumstances to avoid paying tax. We are able to help provide the relief to genuine hardship cases. It's a lot harder to get the ATO to support small business restructures where it appears there's been a manipulation of the company's circumstances to leave the tax office holding the bag. One industry that the ATO is taking a particular scrutiny on is the building and construction industry. Over the last few years, directors in this industry have largely been cash-strapped by the developments in the industry that have been much documented in my previous videos. Take a look at the links below. However, in a lot of cases, directors have taken more money out of their businesses to maintain the lifestyles that they would normally be able to afford and are not in a position to pay that money back. The ATO is not supporting these sorts of arrangements any longer, and it's time that directors take an honest view of the prospects of their business and the amount of remuneration that they can draw out. Largely within the industry, we see a lot of external advisors making unsubstantiated and baseless promises to directors about how the small business restructuring process will go. But with the ATO's new attitude towards it, we recommend that directors and advisors take a much more pragmatic approach to assessing the benefits and the prospects of success of a small business restructure. If you're looking to get a realistic view of whether or not the small business restructuring proposal can help your business, give us a call at O'Brien Palmer. We'll have a look at all of your financial circumstances and give you an honest answer as to whether the small business restructuring process might be successful or otherwise it's just going to cost you money before having to implement another restructuring proposal. Give us a call today. We're happy to have a chat. The industry that the ATA is taking... ATA. Let me think how would I do that?
He's ripping it out.
Far less, yeah mate, I got this down now. Like,
What is it?
mate, I'm freaking natural these days.
And there's my blooper.
No!
Thanks, mate.
I thought you turned that off.
No.